Fan going live on YouTube, streaming live on YouTube. Put my iPad in the stand now. There.
For the investigators who worked so hard to save Benny, the case will never be over until everyone responsible for his death is brought to justice.
Like a woman scorned. It's an old quote commonly attributed to the 17th century play The Mourning Bride, a tragic tale of love, deception, and betrayal that ultimately leads to murder. These are themes that closely mirror the real-life story of Betty Broderick, the San Diego socialite who capped off an ugly divorce by gunning down her ex-husband Dan and his new wife Linda in the early morning hours of November 5th. This controversial case resulted in 2 criminal trials, both attracting extensive media attention and raising important questions about a woman's role in society, as well as equal rights and protection under the law.
Dan and Betty Broderick landed in the crown jewel of San Diego. La Jolla is right along the coast, beautiful homes. This is the old wealthy, the new rich, and they were social. Dan was president of the Bar Association in San Diego County. He dressed very sharply. He had a magnificent court presence. Betty was considered a socialite. She was there with him almost 20 years, and things changed, and she did not take it well.
She was his wife. That was her identity, basically.
She had the big Suburban with the Lotomat, license plate, and she was like the perfect suburban mom.
To the outside world, no one would ever know that she's going to end up enduring what was ahead of her, settling her divorce.
It was like the worst divorce in the history of San Diego.
She felt that she had been done wrong in every possible way. This was a woman who met him when she was very young. 4 children together. And when he found another woman who...
This morning, the police activity an indication of something less than tranquil inside. Broderick, 44, and his 28-year-old second wife, Linda, lay shot to death. Friends apparently got a call in the early morning hours that something was wrong. Police got a call soon after. The police say Broderick's ex-wife may have made both phone calls.
I covered major murder trials throughout decades in San Diego, and this was one of the ones that just stunned the community. It got everyone talking. Betty went to Dan and Linda's house in the early morning hours. She broke into climbed the stairs armed with a .38 caliber revolver. The disturbance awoke someone. She
never went there to kill him, but who are you gonna believe, you know?
This was an execution. It was a double execution.
It was vicious, it was planned, it was premeditated, it was intentional. It was almost as good as a professional hit.
She wanted some kind of family life. She wanted some kind of love, some kind of tenderness for her and the children.
I had represented a fair number of women who had been accused of homicide and had been involved in cases that had to do with emotional and mental issues. When I first got involved in the case, Carrie Wells was the prosecutor on it. Carrie was already very invested. She came from the domestic violence unit, so it wasn't just she didn't like Betty, she didn't like lawyers in general, including probably me.
I lived and ate and breathed and slept this case for 2 years because I feared that Elizabeth Broderick was not going to be held responsible for killing 2 people.
We are unable to reach a unanimous decision between murder and manslaughter for Dan or Linda Broderick.
The verdict in the first trial was on jury. 10 of the jurors wanted to convict of first-degree murder. 2 felt that that was too much. They butted heads for days and then finally came back to Judge Whalen and said, we can't come to a decision.
I'm disappointed. I thought the evidence supported a verdict.
She's not relieved that the prospect is that this has to go forward again.
The second trial was covered gavel to gavel by Court TV.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
This was a ratings boom. Court TV was in its infancy, and this was an experiment. And it paid off for them. It paid off for a local station that preempted their soap operas and ran the Betty Broderick trial, and people watched. They were riveted to the screen.
She was on Oprah twice, I think the most popular shows ever. There's a movie about her with Meredith Baxter Birney, and right now Dirty John has a series on her, on Betty Broderick's story.
It's fascinating. It's like a TV movie. The Betty Broderick case couldn't have been more of a Lifetime movie if it had had scriptwriters.
From the 28th Supreme Court is now in session. Gentleman Thomas J. Graham, please be seated. I'm order. This case is about the cold-blooded execution of 2 people. The evidence that you'll hear, the undisputed evidence, is that Elizabeth Broderick, the defendant, shot and killed 2 people as they lay helpless.
Killed Jaime.
Because she hated them. She is manipulative. She's very bright. She's very charismatic. You can be bright and charismatic and kill people.
Please proceed, Mr. Earl. Thank you.
This is a family. This was their family. She thought it was protected. And when he left, without telling her that there was going to be a divorce, that they were leaving, that they weren't going to be together, he took this and said, glass is not going to protect this picture. Your family is not going to be protected. And he smashed that family apart. And she believed at that time that the glass protects the picture and that the vows protect the family. But it was shattered.
I spent days and days and days and weeks getting art students to take pictures of the family, put glass over it, cover it with tape so I could smash the picture on a podium and have a fractured frame in front of it to show how this family had been fractured by Dan.
There's something going on with Dan. He's obviously unhappy when she says it's your fault, Dan Broderick, or saying you're having an affair. No, it's your fault, Elizabeth Broderick. Gaslighting from an old Charles Boyer movie.
You're not going out of your mind. You're slowly and systematically being driven out of your mind.
Why?
Gaslighting is as simple as making people believe when you're seeing what's before you is that you're not from your head. With Betty, gaslighting was Dan telling her that she was crazy.
And then I thought I was just going to blow my brains out. But I said, no, let's not do that. That's not what's good for the boys.
People are wearing masks.
With Betty Broderick's second trial underway, defense counsel Jack Early hopes to instill enough doubt in the minds of the jurors about his client's culpability. His goal, a lesser conviction of manslaughter or, once again, a deadlocked jury. But prosecutor Carrie Wells has learned from the mistakes of the first trial and is making it her mission to see that Betty Broderick is held to account for the murders of Dan and Linda.
Can you describe for us whether, from your observations, whether your parents had a happy marriage?
No, I didn't think of that marriage at all. As far as I can remember back, they were fighting and saying they were going to get divorced.
She used to criticize Dan a lot with the way he looked when they married and so on, and the way he was. She said he was kind of nerdy.
I feel she was intimidated, she was quiet, she had a proper behavior. There was a role that I feel she was expected to play as Mrs. Dan Broderick.
She's calm. I remember calling her on it and saying, stop this. She said, oh, it doesn't bother me. And it just continued on and just kind of lived with it. Dan had gone to Cornell and had gone to Harvard to medical, and then he went to law school.
He explained to her the reason why, how they would be much better off with that. And Betty, again, was very supportive.
She was a model, and he was the geek, and she was the, the it girl, and that he begged her to marry him, and then she finally did, and then when they got married, everything turned.
She was raised in
Thanks for using Lovecast. We're a nonprofit. We need your help to keep operating. Especially now, during the coronavirus crisis, Americans need access to local broadcast stations. Please contribute $5 a month. Thank you.
children, she was teaching, she was working at night, she was doing all the things to make sure that Dan would be able to go to school and be successful. She looked at all of this as being an investment in the future.
Mine was a very strong focus, D&D focus.
And I said, well, why did you marry? She said, because it was going to be a money-making machine.
Dan came to San Diego and quickly hooked up with one of the most prestigious law firms in the city. After just a few years there, he branched out on his own. Dan hired a legal assistant who was basically a young Betty. Very attractive, blonde, and then all of a sudden, he was out in public with her doing things. Betty, on his 39th birthday, took a bottle of champagne and some red roses to his office, thought she'd surprise him and maybe sweeten up the marriage a little bit. He wasn't there. She was told that he was out with Linda.
There was an incident where Betty came to his office and ended up burning his clothes at the end of it.
She went in and took all the clothes and threw them out the back over the balcony into the grass, went down, put gasoline all over the place, and lit it on fire.
It was a gesture of, how dare you do this to me while this is who you're pretending to be. When Dan moved out, he didn't tell Betty, I'm moving out, we're getting a divorce. What he said is, we need time apart. She was going to leave herself in his hands. And that had been Betty's approach throughout this case with Dan.
Dan Broderick decided he wanted someone new, and it was a younger, very attractive woman.
She had conveyed to me that he was having a classic midlife crisis and that she hoped he would come to his senses and return to her and the family.
She was the quintessential left bride. Her job description, she said, was wife and mother, and he could not change to just mother.
Her strong statement to me that I can recall is, if I can't be Mrs. Dan Broderick, then he can have the kids. Mom and I got in an argument. No.
Killed Jaime.
To go to school and be successful. She looked at all of this as being an investment in the future.
Mine was a very strong focus, the focus.
And I said, well, why did you marry him? She said, because he was going to be a money-making machine.
Dan came to San Diego and quickly hooked up with one of the most prestigious law firms in the city. After just a few years there, he branched out on his own. Dan hired a legal assistant who was basically a young...
He didn't tell Betty.
In his house.
In 2016, Justin Ross.
Both parties. This move on Dan's part in San Diego, and Betty helped him build one of the most successful medical malpractice firms in the city, with the potential to rake in tens of millions of dollars over the next several decades. Dan sought out and received what is known as a bifurcated divorce, which, unlike a regular divorce, allows for the immediate dissolution of the marriage before any of the complex financial or custodial issues are sorted out by both parties. This move on Dan's part left Betty angry, confused, and eager to gain the upper hand.
She is made aware in 1985 that there's going to be a divorce. And so what does Dan do? He starts off the divorce doing just what he had told Betty he used to do to make sure that he was sitting on people when he negotiated.
Right after she moved in to Coyote Dale was the period of time that I talked about where she was going over to Coral Reef and vandalizing the house.
She spray painted the house once, and then another time she smeared lipstick on the bathroom mirror saying something. And then another time she smeared Boston cream pie all over Dad's bed.
Did ask you to go over to the Coral Reef house at the time and check out the condition of the Coral Reef house?
Yes. When I arrived, I went around to the back of the house. There was a sliding glass door broken, and there was a very strong smell of some flammable material, I guess gasoline. And I discovered on some stairs going to the second that there were burned patches and matches thrown various places, and then the remains of a pack of matches on the stairs.
Did your dad ever talk to her about stopping doing that?
Yes, repeatedly. She wasn't going to stop doing that. And Dad thought that if we moved out of there, that the mom wouldn't want to come around, so we won't be in her house anymore. So she went aggravated that we were all living in this house.
Did you enter the negotiation with Dan Broderick's attorney for the sale of the family residence at Coral Reef?
Yes, how the monies from the sale of the residence would be divided between Mr. and Mrs. Broderick.
The Coral Reef House was important for Betty for a reason. That's the first home they really bought. That was their family home. For Dan, it was just an asset, and he wanted out of the marriage. So that home to him was something he wanted to get rid of immediately. For Betty, she clung on to that as much as she could.
Betty was referred to me by a lawyer friend in San Diego.
We had originally planned for a four-way meeting between Mr. Ashworth, myself, and the Brodericks. But she did not want to come up and attend the meeting. She didn't want to be in Mr. Broderick's presence.
She couldn't handle the separation at all, and she certainly couldn't handle the legal process. And I told her lawyer that on a number of occasions, don't do that. Do not play the legal game with her. She has to be handled differently.
The agreement was that the house would be sold, proceeds would be equally divided, but from Mr. Broderick's share of the proceeds, Mrs. Broderick would get an additional I think it was $18,500. Well, she wanted to sign it. She wasn't ready to sign it at that point. I advised her that unless there was an agreement that he would go into court, if she didn't go along with this division.
When he wanted to sell a house, he went to court to get a court order. He essentially never discussed with Betty what he was doing. She didn't agree to it. And all of a sudden she gets a court order that
killed Jaime.
I advised her that unless there was an agreement that he would go into court, if she didn't go along with this division.
when he wanted to sell a house, he went to court to get a court order. He essentially never discussed with Betty what he was doing. She didn't agree to it. And all of a sudden she gets a court order that the house is sold.
And she did things in between that everybody knows about, like driving her Suburban to the front door of his house.
Everything started shaking, and then the sound, it sounded like a car. I could hear Mom, and I couldn't hear Dad. Dad wasn't saying anything. I assumed she was dead.
She was behaving truly inappropriately, and that's why I got out of the case, because she absolutely wouldn't listen to my advice. I actually warned that something violent would happen. I just kept telling Dan's lawyer, you can't handle this case this way.
Jack early decided that he was going to be very colorful and demonstrative. He put her on the stand to get her side out there. You never know when that defendant is going to step over the line and do something you don't really want to know.
It's like my eyeballs were turned backwards and the whole world was inside my head. It's how you're in hell, actually.
The open enrollment deadline is Tuesday, and picking your health insurance exchange.
This is what you do need. Completely out of
And you figure the jury comes from a general pool of the people. So you assume that many of the jurors are going to have a lot of the same feelings as the people in the hallways that are talking.
car into his front door.
Why did you run your car into his front door?
I was extremely hysterical. I was totally upset. I was crying. The biggest thing that bothered me was, besides the sale of the house, the biggest thing that bothered me was the way he was treating me. This is the man that was supposed to take care of us and that I trusted and all that baloney. And I went to him for answers, and the way he treated me was just so awful and so cold and just non-communicative. Like, it was just like, screw you,
Were you kept away from seeing the kids by something?
Yes, by this restraining order. I was very scared by it because I was defiant and I did go see the kids as much as I could, but I was very scared because he was threatening to every time I came to see my own kids that I was liable to be thrown in jail.
Dan supposedly papered her with legal actions when they were going through the divorce. She, in turn, would do things to throw things out of whack.
Were you aware of any times when your mother would go into your dad's house when she was not supposed to be there, when it violated the restraining order?
Yes.
Were you ever requested by Mr. Broderick as part of your employment to change the locks on his house, Cypress?
Yes, October, November of '88, 3 times, and then a 4th time in May of '89.
Betty became, I would say, distraught, more helpless. She became very frustrated.
She was indignant, she was embarrassed, she was angry, and then all of that was replaced with rage.
When you say she hated him, if you had to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10.
Obviously over 10, 10++. And that was a continuous problem with Betty. We just couldn't seem to get her to let go of the whole thing and get on with it.
She got so angry, so obsessed with getting even with Dan that she victimized her children.
Your 4 children that you're working so hard to come to you. Congratulations, you didn't have one. Stop going long enough to return one call. I left messages on the machine of today's working secretary, etc., etc. I have very important things to ask you. You're making me mad. I'll kill you.
She told Brett to get, she wouldn't see Brett if she didn't get out of the house, referring to Linda. He was completely distraught over that. He was very upset.
The first day, was terrible. You were so bad. You couldn't go over there. All I hear is that I want to come and grab one of them. The rest of it, you take off the stuff and everything else when you want to come from. Because we both left you and you're just being a little jerk because you didn't want us to come over. All you wanted was stupid money. Very smart. If you're going to set a famous guy who grow up, whatever you do, you're going to be so successful in yourself. Take care to your brother.
The psychologists that were dealing with the kids had talked to her about the harm that this conduct was causing to those kids. But she decided it was more important for her to hopefully make Dan and Linda miserable.
She said, no way, I'm not going to be the single mother of 4 kids. I've already told you that. He'll die first. I'm not letting go of him that easy. The little mine, and he'll stay mine. And folks, she may be the angriest person I ever saw. One of the top 2 anyway.
They don't know about the numerous times that Dan tried to give her the kids. Now she would tell the mediator that there was no way she'd take those kids. No way in hell would she take those kids because she was going to make Dan and Linda miserable.
Yeah,
Hi.
after your mom and dad separated, did your dad indicate that he wasn't afraid of your mother?
Everybody knew that my dad was afraid of my mom. He came to me and he asked me if I could find out if my mom had a gun on it. So I went to my mom's house. I asked my mom, everybody knows you have a gun
up to the morning of November 5th, 1989, was at the heart of both of her criminal trials. Her attorney claimed that years of mental and emotional abuse at the hands of her ex-husband led her to act out in increasingly bizarre and dangerous ways, which ultimately culminated in the murders of Dan and Linda. During the second trial, the prosecution pulled out all the stops by asking renowned forensic psychiatrist Park Dietz to take the stand as the state's expert witness.
Betty changed colossally. Betty had gained an enormous amount of weight. Her body had turned into an old woman's, and her personality was one of despair and sadness.
You indicated that there was another threat that she had made. She told me that she had been talking with Dan, and that she told him that he would give her $1 million in cash, or she was going to kill him. She also indicated that if he did give her $1 million in cash, she would bring up wanting custody of the children.
She was a victim, but she was also a perpetrator herself. The two of them went at each other viciously.
I was waiting for the boys to get home. Yanni came off the bus. Brett was not there. I saw her pull up onto the sidewalk. I asked Brett to please step out of the Suburban. You can't order my children around. You have no say. You can't control them. Brett looked over at me. He told me his mother had a butcher knife under his seat at that point. Betty Broderick told me she had a gun envelope on, and she would kill me. There was not a shadow of a doubt in my mind that Mrs. Broderick would not kill me. She was upset and angry. She had just come from her accountant, they told me, and the accountant had indicated to her that when all of her real estate transactions were complete, she'd have about $60,000 or $80,000 left to live off for the rest of her life.
This is something that she was telling you. You don't have any independent knowledge of whether or not that was true.
No, I don't.
When you find out that he was paying her voluntarily $9,000 a month and then $16,000 a month, and that she was living in a beautiful home in La Jolla, you start again to have a little bit different picture about what the misery that she was living in. She is a master at destruction.
Morning, Doctor. How are you?
I received a call in 1990 asking if I'd be willing to work on the Betty Broderick retrial. And it was from prosecutors with the San Diego DA's office. They told me that their expectation was that she was going to try to mount the claim that she couldn't form the intent to kill the victims, previously known as diminished capacity, sometimes called diminished actuality.
My name is Park Elliott Dietz, D-I-E-T-Z.
If Park Dietz is one of the people that he's going to testify in the case and tell me nothing about the case at all, I could give you an envelope with the diagnosis in it, and it would be pretty 95% spot on.
Doctor, what is a narcissistic personality?
A narcissistic personality is an individual who is very full of himself or herself, that is prideful, very focused on being important, needing to be admired and respected by other people.
I was able to testify to what wasn't wrong with her. She tried to burn down one of the homes. She drove her vehicle into his house. She made statements about all those things and written about those things in a way that made it perfectly plain that they were by design, thoroughly planned, and intended to gain revenge.
And Ms. Broderick is still on the road from last week now?
Betty Broderick wanted to take a stand. Betty Broderick wanted the world to know, this is why I did it, and this is what happened to me, and this is why I snapped.
Your anger at Dan Broderick after the separation is what made you change your feelings about whether or not you had a good marriage before the separation, correct?
I couldn't handle being sued from the day one. I didn't know how to protect myself or defend myself. And every time legal papers came, I felt they were an attack. And I was scared that there was all these thoughts just churning in my head. And there was so much going on inside my head. And that's kind of like my eyeballs were turned backwards. universe and the whole world was inside my head. It felt like you were in hell, actually. And then I thought I was just gonna...
Thanks for using Locast. We're a nonprofit and need your help to keep operating. Especially now, during the coronavirus crisis, Americans need access to local broadcast stations. Please contribute $5 a month. Thank you.
Well, my brain's out, but I said, no, let's not do that. That's not what's good for the boys, you know. We're gonna go and we're gonna talk to Dan. We're gonna just try one more time to talk to Dan, to tell him to give me the kids and just leave us alone. And if he wouldn't agree at all, I was just gonna kill myself in his house.
In that situation where it is a narcissistic personality disorder, the central characteristics really are three.
I wrote a suicide note and left it on the kitchen counter. And then it says 3 things that I can't take anymore.
The first is that the individual tends to have what people would commonly refer to as a swollen ego.
Number 1, Linda Coltina, interfering with what little contact I have left with my children.
The second characteristic is that such people really can't recognize how other people feel about things.
Number 2, the constant threats of court, jail, fines, etc., which is very scary to me, and no matter what the evidence, I always lose.
And the third characteristic is being thin-skinned.
Number 3, them constantly insinuating I'm crazy. That's the same thing that he's been telling me since 1983, is that I am emotionally disturbed and I have a mental disease, and I couldn't stand getting attacked like this.
There's absolutely no question in my mind that she intended to kill Dan and Linda, that she had thought about killing them for years.
I brought the gun with me initially to make them have to talk to me. And if they said they were going to call the police, I'd say, no, you're not.
What did you do when you went into their bedroom?
The movement that I made into their bedroom woke them up, and they moved, and somebody screamed, call the police, and I said, no. And I just fired the darkness, and the noise went off. And it just was an explosion. Just going off, like, it was that fast.
I don't think she ever thought the reaction would be call the police right away. And her reaction to that appeared to be, at the time, genuine and in a dissociative state.
It was not 5 separate noises. It was one noise.
Last time when you remembered the shots, you testified specifically that you remembered all 5 shots.
I remember the real loud noise. 5 times. It was just one noise on that night.
You also, when you testified last time, you never testified that anyone yelled, call the police, did you?
Did anybody ask me that?
Yes.
Killed Jaime.
I don't think she ever thought the reaction would be call the police right away. And her reaction to that appeared to be, at the time, genuine and in a dissociative state.
It was not 5 separate noises. It was one noise.
Last time when you remembered the shots, you testified specifically that you remembered all 5 shots.
I remember the real loud noise. just one noise on that morning.
You also, when you testified last time, you never testified that anyone yelled, "Call the police," did you?
Did anybody ask me that?
Yes, they did ask you that.
She's a wonderful little liar, and she was very slippery and very good at testifying, probably the best I think I'll ever see.
Can you tell us what the likelihood is that the defendant shooting these 5 shots were all the result of accidental discharges? Bordering on impossible. Thank you, Madam President.
There was testimony about how true her aim was. She then went to her daughter's house and hid for a few hours, then turned herself in.
On that date, early in the morning, do you recall receiving a phone call?
It was my mom. She told me that she shot my dad. She shot the son of a bitch. She wanted to come to my house. She said she shot the gun one time, but it fired 5 or 6 times. She didn't think that she had hurt my dad because he had sat up and said, all right, you shot me, I'm dead.
Now, sometime after November the 5th, when Linda
So you destroyed her. And she said yes. And she said it very lightheartedly. I asked her what could I have done to stop you from what you did. And she said there was nothing you could have done.
from Linda to Dan to Linda again.
The people of the state of California versus Elizabeth Ann Broderick.
Weeknights on Court TV.
We begin with the story everyone has.
Form us, and that spark can make a difference when we.
Betty had made countless threats against their lives to anyone who would listen. She also purchased a .38 caliber revolver and a box of hollow point bullets, which are designed to create the most physical damage when fired into a human being. Defense attorney Jack Early has the monumental task of convincing this jury that these deliberate acts of premeditation were merely the result of the emotional abuse that she'd endured over the years, and that the crimes she committed were simply a matter of self-preservation. The question is, will any of the jurors buy it?
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing. Sounds good, okay.
This time, we're going to have the closing statements of the attorneys.
Your job is to decide the legal culpability of Elizabeth Broderick's conduct on November the 5th, 1989. And that's it. The question for you is simply, did Elizabeth Broderick commit these murders? The cold, hard facts of what actually happened in the room are indisputable. She had to shoot Linda in the bed. She had to point at Dan and shoot him in the back. From Linda to Dan to Linda again to accomplish that last shot into the back of Linda's head.
To me, it would have been devastating to have another hung jury. Because then the potential of trying a case a third time around, the chances are very slim.
Ready for statements, Mr. Early? It is not a case where we are telling you that as jurors you should ignore the law. And you'll be instructed in the element of voluntary manslaughter. There is an intent to kill. But somebody who is pounded and pounded and pounded and dripped and dripped and dripped, day by day, year by year, is going to build it up. And sure, there's going to be anger, it's going to go higher, and it's going to be with them a very long period of time.
She never made any claims that she didn't do it. But why? That was for the jury to decide.
It was hopeful because the jury was out for a while. And they were asking questions. So the jurors were invested in the case, and that meant a lot to me because we tend to do better when jurors are invested in the case.
There are camera crews which have crawled out of the woodwork from all over town. It looks like this jury may have a verdict.
The report is now in session. Now, the Thomas J. Whalen, judge presiding.
Mr. McAllister, I understand the jury has reached a verdict.
Yes, that's correct.
Would you give the force to my bailiff, please?
The people of the state of California plaintiff versus Elizabeth Ann Broderick, defendant. We, the jury, find the defendant, Elizabeth Ann Broderick, guilty of the crime of murder in the second degree. Victim, Daniel Broderick. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of the crimes of murder in the second degree. Victim, Linda Broderick.
When the verdict came in, first of all, I don't really think that she at the moment understood what was going on. The smile was the fact that someone listened to her.
My discussions with the jurors afterwards is that most of the jurors did believe it was premeditated.
As it is said, it is a long and hard and painful to create life, and it is short and easy to steal the life others have made. And I really hope that the court will show us that the lives that they had did not go in vain and did have some value.
I never laughed more than I did when I was with Linda. Her friendships were based on the same values with which she was raised. Another relationship would have been so much easier, but Linda truly loved Dan despite all the problems he would face. And Dan, unaccustomed as he was to a loving partner, loved her very much.
Communications with her children indicated that they never heard an apology from her. She never made any comment that indicated she had true remorse. She said that Dan deserved it, basically, that Linda deserved it. They had driven her to the point where I'm crazy, and that she was basically getting even.
What would I do if my spouse decided after 20-something years just to move on? Would I want to kill him? Maybe. I think a lot of people can identify with Betty Broderick. We've all had situations where we feel cast aside, where we feel left out, where we feel excluded, where we feel hurt by somebody who we love and who presumably loves us.
She's almost a catalog of personality disorder features. To me, the most important one, the one that really helps understand what went on in this case, is this sense of entitlement.
I think Betty Broderick was fascinating because she was the most unrepentant criminal who ever lived. She was glad she did it, and she would do it again.
Betty Broderick has been denied parole twice, and her 4 children have differing opinions as to whether she should ever be released. 2 of her children believe that Betty has done her time, with her daughter Lee even offering to take her in. But the other 2 believe that she belongs right where she is, behind bars, and will only commit more crimes if she's ever freed from prison. Betty is currently serving her 32-year sentence at the Institute for Women in Chino, California. She won't be up again for parole until 2032, when she's 85 years old. I'm Ashley Banfield. Thanks for joining us.
For more TV show videos, hit the big red button and subscribe. Peace out, YouTube.